BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Andrew Petrie and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, kickstarting your week with a final word on the weekend's action.
Here's Dorrans in a good position, left-hand side into the box. He comes, tries to curl it. Oh, what a goal!
Rangers beat Hibs, but will Philippe Clement be concerned after an underwhelming performance? Meanwhile, there's not much underwhelming about Celtic right now.
He will go first time touch to Bernardo and into the box, strike into the bottom corner! That is an absolutely sensational goal from Celtic!
After another dominant display, can anyone stop the rampant champions? And
Keskinen's up to the edge of the box, shoots and scores! McCracken got a touch, but Keskinen drives Aberdeen into a 2-0 lead. The Don supporters in complete dreamland this season.
how far can Aberdeen go after making it 12 wins out of 12?
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
I'm delighted to be joined by former Celtic winger and current Ayr United technical manager Aiden McGeady. Aiden, how are you getting on? A decent result for your side yesterday.
Yeah, but I'm not really involved at the minute, so yeah, good result. Team have been playing well. Before yesterday, hadn't won in 3 games, but started the season and been unbeaten so far. So still obviously play two more games than Falkirk and I think Livingston as well. But so far so good.
Fantastic. We're also joined by Graham Dorrans, former Rangers and Scotland midfielder, currently plying his trade for Johnson Borough, off the bench against Beath Juniors yesterday. Graham, do you want to talk about that game very much?
No, not really. It wasn't the best of games. Still hanging on in there, trying to keep the boots on. But it was a poor performance from us yesterday and a disappointing result.
Well, we'll just move right on from both of those then. As we record, it's the evening of Sunday, the 29th of September, but you'll be hearing this on Monday morning at the earliest. There's lots to discuss, but before we get into things in more depth, what were you two guys' highlights of the Scottish football weekend?
Myself is probably not a highlight as such as any one thing. It's probably, looking back at the highlights from last night and today, it's probably the standard of some of the goals that I've seen. Probably Tom Lawrence's goal, on a fantastic strike, Ronan Hale's goal.
Plenty of time for a goal, and Ross County are looking for one here. Conor Randall's still going in, but Ingame breaks back to Hale! Sensational strike for Ross County. Make it 6 and 10 for Ronan Hale and Ross County colours, and that, the pick of the bunch. Craig Gordon could do absolutely nothing about it. And Ronan Hale is looking like a really shrewd addition for Ross County. This, one of the goals of the month.
Dave Watson's, and then Celtic's team goal, the 6-goal Adam Eaders.
It is 5-0 to the champions. 82 and a half minutes played at McDermott Park. Baye moving infield and gives it to McCowan, who dummies a shot and chips a little ball. Baye with a backheel. Eden!
Probably the highlight is not so much a moment, but just the quality of goals that's seen this weekend.
Absolutely, Graham. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, so the one bit of quality I seen today when I was at the game from Tom Lawrence, it was a wonderful finish. And watching the Celtic game yesterday, they were really dominant and scored some good goals. But I think the performances of 2 young lads and Watson and Lennon Miller at Motherwell as well. It's nice to see these young boys coming through and progressing well. Certainly
very encouraging for the future. Before we move on, let's whiz through the latest headlines. Rangers ground out a narrow 1-0 win over Hibs on Sunday to move back to within 5 points of the top of the Scottish Premiership. Leaders Celtic battered St Johnstone 6-0 in Perth on Saturday evening. More bad news for the Perth side as well, as Larne boss Tiernan Lynch has rejected the chance to take over as manager at McDermott Park. Back to the action, Aberdeen also maintained their 100% record by defeating Dundee 2-1 at Dens Park. 2 goals from 18-year-old Lennon Miller saw Motherwell beat St Mirren 2-1, while Hearts drew 1-1 with Ross County at home thanks to Lawrence Shankland's 96th minute equaliser. And Dundee United left it even later to earn a point away to Kilmarnock, with Ross Graham's penalty in the 99th minute, the final act of a remarkable game that ended 3-3. Let's start at Ibrox then, a trickier task than Rangers would have liked, Graham. What did you make of the game?
Look, there wasn't much quality within the game, especially from a Rangers point of view. I was hoping to go along to the game today and see a more dominant performance and be more comfortable. We didn't see that. Hibs will probably feel a bit unlucky that they've not won the game, never mind got a point out it. But as we touched on earlier, the one bit of quality in the game that we've seen was from Tom Lawrence. He picks the ball up in the wide area and cuts inside and finds a fantastic finish into the far post. But again, is it a little bit of a hangover from the European game midweek? Might well be. He made a couple of changes going into the game that maybe affected the team a little bit. But I'm saying a little bit disappointed with the performance, but it was all about getting the 3 points and then moving on into which will be another big week for him getting into the European game again.
Well, you touched on those changes. Nicholas Raskan, Hamza Egerman coming in, a rare chance for them, but did they really impress on that chance?
No, probably not, to be honest. I mean, the youngster Egerman coming in, he's made a few substitute appearances in the last few weeks and he's looked decent. I mean, he's strong in stature, he's technically looked well, but today he was probably starved a little bit of service as well. And to be honest, I don't think he's a number 9. I think he's more of a wide player coming in off the wide areas. So he'll probably be disappointed with how today went. But I think overall it wasn't a great performance from Rangers.
No, but let's look at Hibs, Aiden. What did you make of their performance? It obviously wasn't the result they wanted, but can they take much heart from the performance?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's been a lot levelled at Hibs so far this season with the poor start they've had. I think David Gray definitely set his team up, and he's learned from the last few games, especially going to Celtic Park, where I think they were a lot more open. Today it was like a 4-5-1, 4-4-1-1 almost, and they played very defensively, but a bit more pragmatic, which is needed. And to be honest, that reiterate what Graham's saying there about the way Rangers played. I don't think Rangers ever really had much control in the game. They had possession, but not really dominant possession in terms of any meaningful areas, I don't think. And there was that period just after half time where I was just expecting Hibs to actually score. The fans were becoming quite anxious. The players, it was transmitting onto the pitch as well. But listen, it's a big result for Rangers because at the minute I think they have to not worry about Celtic. It's about keeping pace with Aberdeen at the minute.
Absolutely, and I don't necessarily want to touch on it too much because it didn't make an impact in the end, but Philippe Clement wasn't happy at all with the penalty that Hibs were awarded. It was a handball from John Souttar. What did you two make of it?
Look, I think he's unlucky, but the way the VAR and the handball rule is now, it's a penalty for me. I mean, he tries to put his body on the line and throw his body in front of the ball, but the slight movement of the elbow makes that penalty all day for me.
What about you, Aiden?
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. I mean, I do think it is a penalty with the letter of the law these days. But then you can go on to some other games we've seen this weekend where there were no penalties given and there were goals not ruled out for very similar things. You just want it to be accurate. That's the thing with VAR. That's why it was introduced. You want it to be fair and not have these mistakes. But I'm not saying that the Hibs penalty was a mistake, but there was a lot of other incidents this weekend I thought that were mistakes.
Certainly, we'll come on to those from Saturday's game. We'll start in Perth, the late kick-off. St Johnstone 0, Celtic 6. Aiden, how impressed are you with Celtic at the moment?
Yeah, I think you're running out of superlatives for Celtic at the minute. I just think they're playing with such confidence, and the additions that they made just before the end of the transfer window have only strengthened their squad. Having a fantastic result in Europe to kick off that Champions League campaign where, you know, this season everything's been levelled at Brendan Rodgers and his team to actually translate that domestic form into Europe. But just now in the league, I think Celtic have nothing to worry about. I mean, obviously that can change, but Celtic are just looking so strong. They're playing with such pace, passing forward quickly. I mean, so different from last season when there was a lot, it's not complaints, but there was things being levelled at the team about the pace of the play and how slow the build-up was. Just now we're not seeing that at all. It's very, very quick. It's when they lose the ball, they're very, very quick to win the ball back with the forward players that they've got. And when they're playing in possession, they just look like they're going to sweep everyone away at the minute.
And is that just a case of Brendan Rodgers having a bit more time to implement his style back onto Celtic after that kind of transitional season from Ange Postecoglou to Brendan Rodgers?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when Brendan Rodgers took over at Celtic last season, there probably was a bit of a hangover of a lot of the squad being used to the way Postecoglou wanted his team to play. And it is going to take time to get, keep the good things from that squad and keep the good things about that way of playing and add to it. But I think now that you're seeing the benefits of having two fantastic managers and their imprint on the playing style. But I just think that Celtic are, at the minute, they're playing, like I said, with such confidence. The forward players they've got are all on form. They've got great players to come off the bench as well. like I said, the additions that they've made, strengthening their team and strengthening their squad it's looking like the league is, I'm not saying already done, but we're only 6-7 games in, but it looks very difficult, I think, for anybody to live with them at the minute.
Looking at St Johnstone, as I say, we've just heard that Larne boss Tiernan Lynch has knocked back the chance to take over at McDermott Park. Peter Leaven obviously staying at Aberdeen as well. How bad is the situation that St Johnstone now find themselves in, having sacked Craig Levein a couple of weeks ago, and how important is it to get a manager in as soon as possible?
Yeah, like there's the first went for Scott Brown to try and get him in, then Peter Leaven, and now the manager at Larne seems to have turned them down. So listen, they're going to have to get someone in and get someone in soon. They've not had the best of starts. I mean, I watched the game yesterday and Celtic were really dominant. Obviously, they're up against which is the form team in Scotland, so it was always going to be a difficult game for them. I think in terms of moving forward, they're going to have to get someone in quickly to stamp their authority on it, because they're a team that's probably flirted with the wrong side of the table the last couple of seasons. So I think it's hugely important that they can get someone in and try and get a run of form together and try and get points on the board, because the longer you leave it, the harder it's going to get for them.
Certainly is. Looks really troublesome for them at the moment. One team that are in much smoother waters is Aberdeen, and 100% records so far this season. They continued that with a 2-1 win over Dundee at Dens Park. Graham, what did you make of that result and performance from Jimmy Tilleen's side?
Yeah, look, they've started the season well. I mean, they've got I think it's 6 wins from 6 now. He's a new manager come in and he's built a team that, as I say, is winning games. They're really high in confidence. I mean, they've got Papagay and Nisbet, so they've got people up there that can score goals. But I think for Aberdeen, I think the big test will come for them in the next thing. It's the next 3 or 4 games. They play both Celtic at Parkhead, and I think Rangers have got to go up to Petrie. So I think when you come out of the back of those, that next month, you'll see where Aberdeen are at. If they're still in amongst it after that, then they'll be the real deal. So I think they'll be the real test for Aberdeen and Teelan after them games.
Well, you mentioned Papagay and Kevin Nisbet. Papagay didn't play on Saturday, but Kevin Nisbet now has 3 goals in 5 games for Aberdeen.
It's a long ball from Nicky Devlin. Keskinen giving chase. He might get in behind here. He has done. He's away from his man. Rolls it back to Nisbet, the edge of the box, and he scores! Kevin Nisbet, side-footed, bottom right corner of the net to send more than 4,000 Aberdeen fans into delirium. The red march continues. Fantastic finish from Nisbet.
Aiden, what have you made to the start that he's made to life at Petrie?
Yeah, he's hit the ground running. Obviously, I played with Kevin at Hibs. Very, very good striker. I was surprised it didn't quite work out from Millwall, but shrewd acquisition from Aberdeen. I was surprised. I'm surprised he didn't go back to Hibs, to be honest. I spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. But with Gay being missing, I was unsure of how Aberdeen would do, because I think they've been relying a lot on him. But they've added to their squad like a lot of teams have. But at that end of the table, where Aberdeen I want to be, it's a shrewd acquisition, and getting Nisbet, like you said, 3 goals in 5 games already. He will score goals. He's a proven striker in the SPL. And it's up to him to keep adding to that and have a good season, because I think his plans are to get back in the Scotland setup. I think that was why he wanted to come back to Scotland to have a bit more of a spotlight on himself, to get back into Steve Clarke's plans. But very, very good acquisition, like I said, for Aberdeen, and I think he's going to do well up there. I've always very impressed with him at Hibs, and like I said, just unfortunate that it didn't work out in Millwall, but that's Aberdeen's gain.
And you mentioned the Scotland setup there. I wonder, with the squad getting announced probably next week, certainly Scotland's next game coming up quick, will Kevin Nisbet be in Steve Clarke's thinking? Because obviously Lawrence Shankland hasn't started this season that well. He's only just scored his first goal, and we'll come to that later. But could it be the case that Nisbet maybe pips Shankland into that Scotland squad?
In my opinion, I'd be surprised if that happens. I think he'd need a little bit more time and a little bit more form, to be honest with you, to be included instead of Lawrence Shankland. I do think Steve Clarke is very loyal to his players, the players that have done well from the past and the players that have been part of his squad. But I do think if Kevin Nisbet keeps playing the way he is and keeps scoring goals, and Shankland's not exactly firing all cylinders at the minute, there is a potential for that to happen.
And we've talked a lot about Aberdeen. We'll look at Dundee. Graham, you played there. That's now 3 defeats in a row for them, 5 without a win. But Tony Docherty felt that they were the better team against Aberdeen. Do you think they'll be able to replicate any of last season's form and kick on a little?
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, as you said, it's probably been a stickier start than he would have wanted at the start of the season. Only one win so far, but that's when Tony Dock went in there last season. He, as you mentioned there, he got them firing all cylinders, and they've got good players up there. Obviously, they've lost their captain and their most important player in Lincoln County, Celtic, but there's people like Tiffany and players like that can step up. And I'm sure once they get a bit of momentum and get a run going, Dundee will be fine. You know what I mean? They'll be looking to push into the top 6, but I don't think there'll be any danger at them being near the bottom of the league.
Well, we'll look at Saturday's other games as well. Motherwell edged out St Mirren 2-1 at Fir Park, and there was late drama at both Tynecastle and Rugby Park. Firstly, how important was that 96th minute leveller for Hearts as a club, and how important was it, Aiden, for Lawrence Shanklin just as a player to kind of get that monkey off his back?
Corner, header, and Hearts are level. Lawrence Shanklin, and it's a look of relief on the skipper's face rather than anything else.
Aiden touched on it a minute ago. Lawrence hasn't been firing all cylinders, and neither have Hearts so far. You know, that's why Stephen Naismith has probably lost his job in the end. He had a few chances yesterday. I mean, I watched the highlights, and you could see he was getting frustrated that none of them were falling into the back of net for him. He had the chance right before he'd obviously scored. So, listen, he's Hearts' talisman, so it's important for him to get off the mat, and he finally got his goal. But that again, Hearts will be looking at that, saying his points dropped. They're at home to Ross County. They're expecting to go and win the game, and unfortunately they've not won it. But as you say, it's a huge important goal that gets a point in the both of them.
And that 99th minute equaliser for Dundee United in the 3-3 thriller against Kilmarnock. Aiden, how frustrated will Derek McInnes be with that?
Yeah, he's got to be absolutely gutted with that. I don't think the last half an hour, I think it was coming. There was a lot of chances, a lot of momentum in Dundee's favour, but you've got to feel absolutely gutted for him, because looking back at that penalty, I don't know how the referee's given that, because he's not even in the right position to see that, and then but it's not enough of a mistake to overrule it either. So, but listen, these things happen in football, but I do think Kilmarnock will be absolutely fine. I think they'll be fine. I think they've got a good enough squad. I do think earlier in the season the European football did take its toll in the early stages of the league campaign, but I think they'll be absolutely fine. But Dundee United, to be fair, have actually surprised me, because playing against them last year in the Championship, they didn't run away with the Championship. They weren't a fantastic team. They did have the best squad. So I was interested to see how they do this season. But Jim Goodman's done very well so far. I think he's been quite shrewd with his signings as well. And it's another big point for them, especially being 3-1 down going into the last 25 minutes of the game. Showed great character to come back, albeit with the help of, like I say, some poor refereeing in my opinion.
It is interesting you mentioned that. That was the Luca Stevenson Fraser Murray challenge, where Murray was adjudged to have fouled Stevenson right at the end. What did you make of United's second goal, though, which was initially given as a foul by Miller Thompson on Liam Polworth? The ball comes back to Craig Sibbald and he lasers it in from 25 yards. Like I say, foul given, and then VAR overturned it and gave the goal. What do you think of that one?
If I'm being totally honest, it's just really surprising the standard of refereeing. If I'm being totally honest, it was given as a foul. It was totally clean tackle, in my opinion. But then the surprising thing for me was the positioning of the referee after it as well. It was almost like he was in the goalie's line of sight. To then not blow the whistle for that, and then for play to continue to then give the goal after that and be overruled. It was bizarre chain of events, and is that not what VAR's supposed to be doing to stop these errors? And by the way, he did rule it out, so it just shows you like we're in. VAR was desperately needed, because that wouldn't have been a goal when it was a completely fine, fair tackle. The thing I would be having issues with if I was Derek McInnes was he's not totally onside the goalie, but he is kind of standing in his way. The position from the referee was really poor. The goalie still should do better, I think, in my opinion, from the shot, but he's almost standing the goalie's way.
Yeah, it was an uncharacteristic mistake from Kieran O'Hara, who's done really well for Kilmarnock since stepping in. He's keeping Robbie McCrory out the team. One young Scottish player who's doing really well at Kilmarnock, though, is David Watson. Graham, you touched on Lennon Miller and Watson at the start of the show, both doing really well. Obviously, he scored a spectacular kind of scissor kick goal as well for Kilmarnock's first. What's the ceiling for this kid? How far could he go?
I've watched him a couple of times, and he's very energetic. I mean, he makes runs forward, so it just causes problems for players. So he came on yesterday at half time and he changed the game for Kilmarnock.
Armstrong with a long throw. Dealt with by Ross Graham. Just back to Armstrong.
Goes towards the back post. Watson's there! A wonder goal from David Watson! Well, this boy is special, all right. Another goal to add to his catalogue of unbelievable strikes. And this one brings Kilmarnock level. A scintillating scissor kick.
As you mentioned there, it's a wonderful acrobatic finish when it comes into the box, and in the second goal he gets across the man and just gets a flick on it. So they'll be disappointed that he's not come on and won the game for Kilmarnock and they couldn't see it out. But yeah, listen, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he could end up getting a move off the back of it. You know, he's coming in there, he's scoring goals, and I said I watched him a couple of times, and he's technically a good player as well. So yeah, look, he's done fantastic.
And the other youngster really impressing, Lennon Miller, in that game between St Mirren and Motherwell. There was plenty of contentious refereeing decisions in that one as well. We've talked about Watson, we'll talk about Miller. Again, how good is he, and how impressed are you with kind of his composure and his confidence at just 18 years old?
He's done great so far again. As you mentioned, they're only 18-year-old, but when you watch him with the maturity he plays with, I mean, he steps up last weekend as well, and slots away a penalty in the last minute. Again, yesterday he tucked his penalty away as well and gets a double yesterday as well.
Halliday there to pick up the scraps. Finds Lennon Miller. Chance to make it 2! Lennon Miller at the double for Motherwell. The teenage sensation with an absolutely fabulous finish.
For me, he's probably the best young talent we've got coming through at the minute. As I said, the maturity that he's shown at such a young age. And he seems to have a bit of everything about him. He's got that little bit of arrogance that you can see that he knows he's a decent player. And again, he's another one that if he keeps going the way he's going, then he could get a move off the back of the performances that he's producing.
Aiden, I don't want to have you on ref watch too much, but there was the contentious decisions in those games. Scott Tanser's red card, Dan Casey's as well. What did you make of them?
You've got me on ref watch then, don't you? I suppose it's my own fault for mentioning at the start of the programme. Yeah, look, I mean, Dan Casey's one is, in my opinion, I think it's harsh. Tanser's, to be honest, I probably do agree with that, but then if you're leading on to the Lennon Miller's second goal, the one where it kind of bounces up off his hand. If we're going back to the penalty that was given today as well, you know, on John Souttar, I think that's got to be ruled out, and that's when you start looking at the inconsistency between the referees and VAR. But not just touching on the game itself and Lennon Miller, like Graham was saying there, I do think he's a top talent. And I think it's essential for his development that he is at Motherwell, because I don't think he would have these opportunities at a Celtic or Rangers at present. And it's invaluable to his development to be playing so many games. I mean, you look at so many young players who are happy to be at Celtic or Rangers and hope for that breakthrough at a bigger team, which doesn't necessarily always come. It's a lot harder to get games. A year's time, he could have played 100 Premier League games at the age of 19. And Motherwell are probably going to be looking, like Graham said there, to at some point to be selling him on. But it's fantastic he's getting such great experience, and he's actually mature beyond his years, I think, as well. So just enjoy him where we can, I think.
Yeah, two really exciting prospects for Scottish football. Well, that's time to wrap things up, but many thanks to Aiden McGeady and Graham Dorrans, and thank you for listening. Remember, we'll be here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every weekday morning, so make sure you don't miss out by subscribing on BBC Sounds or wherever you listen. Until next time, goodbye.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer, but then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me? This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangest Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.